Amen.
Good morning, 10 o'clock. It is so good to have you. It gets so lonely up there in the summer. It is so good to welcome some friends from our day school. It is good to see all of you in song and prayer. It is good to be here. I hope you think it's good to be here. Do you? Yeah? Good. Okay, good. I'm glad. You know, back when I first started in this gig, not here, but when I really started, I was doing one of my first 8 a.m. services. And the reading was from Paul's letter, was from Philippians, where he has a famous line. It's a good one. It says, "Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice." And I think I delivered it even more joyfully, and then said my sermon. Then afterwards, at the back of the church, as we customarily do, the congregation was greeting me. And an older, distinguished gentleman who had been at this church for quite some time said, "Hey, you're just starting out, so let me give you some advice. It's like you need to tamp it down. We like to come to 8 o'clock because it's quiet." And all I did was smile and say, "Okay, great, having a great day." And in my head, I heard the words of one of my mentors say, "The hardest thing to always remember, Ariane, in this vocation of love, is that not everybody's going to like you, and you're just going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to love them anyway. Because this life in God is all about love. It's not about likes and dislikes, click, 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 click. It's about love and this incredible power of love that each of us have and can bring into the world to build one another up in love." Have I gotten you by now to completely forget about the fact that Jesus talked about hating mother and father and sister and brother and giving up all our possessions? Good. Is that forgotten about? So another routine that started up this week for us is our day school chapel, because we went back to school like everybody else. Had our chapel altar. I had my 4 20-minute worship services of This Little Light of Mine and singing, prayers and songs and stories. And it occurred to me when the third class sat down, a voice in my head said, "Hey, Ariane, you don't even know if all these kids know who Jesus is. Like, why don't you ask them? Do you guys know who Jesus is?" So I asked that third class, and my favorite response was, "Yes, he's a superhero." And I was like, kind of. I said, "He's a human being who came to show all of us how we can use the superpower of love to change the world into God's dream." And they all stared at me like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Wow, that's such a clever word. None of you got it." But that's what Jesus came to do. And when Jesus talks one-on-one with people, he is able to convey that message usually through what he does, and not so much by what he says. When the crowds start following Jesus, crowds tend to be around what is fast, cheap, fun, and easy. Crowds tend to follow popularity contests. And crowds don't want to know about the cost, which is why Jesus wants to make sure they get it. If you really want to walk this talk, if you really want this power of love to change your life, just like everything that's of tremendous value, there's going to be a cost. There's going to be times when you feel bereft and alone. There's going to be times when you're called upon to be who you are, the gifts that God gave you, and you're going to have to courageously share them with the world, and not everybody's going to like it. There are going to be times when you upset the status quo, and you're not going to have a lot of friends. But I'm telling you, this way of love is worth it. Letting go of possessions that you think you don't need them as much as this way of love. So Jesus is just trying to get real with these crowds of people who at this particular point in his journey are all on board. What's fascinating about our reading is how this interesting personal note that Paul wrote to his friend Philemon is the acting out in a relationship of exactly what Jesus is talking about. So I'm going to make this quick. Philemon, if you may have noticed, it doesn't even have a chapter number next to it because, Josh, you basically read the entire book. It's one letter. It's a personal note that Paul wrote from prison to his friend Philemon, who he came to know in Christ. In this mission of Paul's, that's how they were brought together. And Paul has a big favor to ask of Philemon. He's like, you know, your indentured servant, and that's a better word for understanding slavery in the Greco-Roman world. You know your indentured servant, Onesimus, who came with me on this mission trip? I need you to make him really useful to me and to this gospel. And that's Paul's play on words, because Onesimus translates into useful. Paul's like, I need you to take Onesimus back, no longer as an indentured servant. I need you to take him back as a brother. Because now you and I are in Christ. And once we have had this power open up our heart and we see everything as a new creation, he can't come back into your household and live into this false hierarchy that the world creates. He needs to come back into your household as a family member, equal to you. And that means you're going to need to forgive the debt, the financial debt that he owes you as an indentured servant. And P.S., just one more thing, you need to send him back to me. So I'm taking him away as an economic asset to your household. I'm causing you to go into debt. Paul says he's going to repay it, but I don't know how he's going to get that stewardship campaign started from jail. I need you to take on this debt because Onesimus isn't going to pay it. And guess what? And this is the hardest thing. This means Philemon will definitely get into disagreements in that household. There will be people there who don't like that that is happening. And now there is this example in the community of somebody stepping out and doing something in love that's going to really rock the boat. But Paul, in this incredible letter of love, says, you got this. I know of your faith. I know of your strength. I know that we were brought together to be used by God for this purpose, and I got your back, and you can do this. An example from 2,000 years ago that still means something. So the usefulness is kind of amazing. Now this week, I saw something that was an example that I know some of you, despite you had to have seen this past week because it went viral. Did any of you watch the tennis match last Sunday between Naomi Osaka and Coco Gauff? All right, here we go. If you did not watch this, please go home and Google what happened after the match. I didn't watch the match. I was doing something last Sunday morning. So Gauff, you have to understand, is 15. Osaka is 21. Osaka was the reigning U.S. Open Women's Champion. Gauff at 15 defeated Venus Williams. At 15, defeated Venus Williams. So this was a very highly contested, eagerly anticipated match last Sunday. And those two women, they're young women, those two young women played their heart out, and in 2 consecutive sets, Osaka beat Gauff. And so typically afterwards, you go over, thank you, good game, then you go for your accolades and your interview. But when you watch Osaka go over, the ESPN camera's right on her the whole time. She goes over to Gauff, who's exhausted, wiped out, and emotional. She just lost. Just a big game. She knows a lot of people were depending on her, and she puts her whole heart into what she does. And Osaka says to her, you're amazing. You're incredible. You need to come over here and do this interview with me. And the camera catches all of this. And Gauff says, I can't. I'm just going to cry the entire time. I'm just going to go in the locker room. And Osaka says, no, it is way better to be here with me than to go cry by yourself in the shower. So stand here with me. All these people came to see you. Stand here with me, and we need to show them how you feel. We need to show them you. Because when we see that, you cannot not be moved. If your heart is not moved when you watch this exchange, and then when they go have this interview, and you know, it's just incredibly uplifting to watch 2 supreme athletes at such a young age have the courage and strength to stand there and commend one another and just shine the light on the other. And after Gauff leaves, the interviewer is like, no, really, let's talk about you now. And Osaka's like, no. And she finds Gauff's parents in the stands. She's like, I remember seeing you at all those trainings. I remember seeing you at all those practices. Isn't it incredible that your daughter and I have made it here today? It's incredibly moving. That's why we're viral. That's the power of love. That's one of the reasons why good things go viral, because we all are desperate for examples of people building each other up in love. So as we go back to whatever we're going back to this fall, remember this unique, incredible gift of God that you are, that has been given your unique, incredible strength, knit together in your mother's womb, this God who knows you're rising down and you're sitting down and you're standing up. Remember that you have this power of love to share, and it requires courage and vulnerability and strength, but you got this. Amen.